Undoubtedly, what makes Nintendo so beloved are its many successful and highly recognizable game franchises and characters. Mario jumps on Goombas, defeats Bowser, and saves Peach. The Legend of Zelda has Link slowly reclaiming Hyrule from Ganon's clutches, and Pokémon has unsupervised miners catching dangerous animals to use them as slave fighters. Nearly every one of Nintendo's franchises has a tried and true method that continues to work to this day. That is, all except for one very notable series.
Fox, do you copy?
General, mind explaining what's going on?
Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Star Fox was originally the result of a collaboration between Nintendo and Argonaut Software. Argonaut had recently developed early 3D titles like Star Glider and Days of Thunder, though results were middling due to the fact that hardware at the time struggled to run 3D titles. Still, after showing off a 3D proof of concept called NES Glider that was able to bypass the system's copy protection, Argonaut convinced Nintendo that they could improve performance of the title if they were allowed to create a special processor built into the game cartridge that could allow them to meet the necessary requirements. This became known as the Super FX chip, and the first game to show off its capabilities was Star Fox. Star Fox hit shelves in North America and Japan in 1993, and was released in Europe and Australia under the name Starwing. Closely resembling a shoot-'em-up but with a 3D perspective, the game saw players fly down a linear path to shoot down waves of oncoming enemies, while at the same time providing cover for their teammates should they get into trouble. While it certainly looks dated by today's standards, it was considered a technological breakthrough at the time because its fast-paced 3D action ran at a steady frame rate and pushed the limits of what the Super Nintendo was capable of. While Argonaut handled the bulk of the programming for the game, Nintendo created its characters and story, which centered around the elite mercenary squad known as Star Fox as they embarked on a mission to stop an invasion of the planet Corneria from the forces of Emperor Andros. Okay, it was a light story, but at the same time, it did help create the iconic anthropomorphic fighter pilots. Ultimately, Star Fox was both a critical and commercial success, selling 3 million units, and today, it's widely regarded as one of the console's best titles. While Argonaut would create other 3D titles for the SNES in the meantime, the two companies would get together again in 1995 to work on a sequel. Star Fox 2 was a radical departure from its predecessor. Instead of a rail shooter, the game used a combination of turn-based movement and 360 battle arenas in both space and on planet surfaces, all of which was complemented by the fact that the Star Fox team's ship, the R-Wing, had the ability to transform into a walking mech to complete missions inside structures. However, despite being nearly completed in 1996, Nintendo canceled the project. Argonaut's lead programmer Dylan Cuthbert claims Nintendo axed it because they didn't want their 3D title to make their upcoming dedicated 3D console, the Nintendo 64, seem irrelevant. A beta ROM was leaked on the internet sometime in the 2000s that allowed fans to experience the title, but the game would never see an official release until 2017, with the launch of the SNES Classic Edition. Around the same time of Star Fox 2's cancellation, another Star Fox title was in the works for the ill-fated Virtual Boy, but that was also scrapped when Nintendo discontinued the console due to poor sales. In 1997 in North America and Japan, Nintendo released Star Fox 64, while Europe and Australia saw it released under the title Lilat Wars. The game was a reboot of the original SNES title, but now featured better visuals, better storytelling, a combination of the classic rail shooting segments combined with 360 combat arenas, and best of all, voice acting.
I see him up ahead. Let's rock and roll!
What's perhaps even more notable is that it was the first console game ever to include dedicated force feedback, thanks to the Rumble Pack bundled with each copy of the game. Yet, what made the game such an instant classic was its replayability. The game's map featured branching paths that were unlocked when certain requirements were met, allowing players to create unique paths to reach the final level.
I've been waiting for you, Star Fox.
Star Fox 64 was met with universal acclaim from critics, selling roughly 4 million copies, and even today it's still considered one of the best games ever made. But after its success, the Star Fox series went into hibernation, with its next game being completely different. In fact, it didn't even start life as a Star Fox game.
General Scale, ruler, tyrant, and dictator of the Shopcloak tribe. And who might you be, Animal Girl?
In 1998, Nintendo's most successful second-party developer, Rare, began work on a game titled Dinosaur Planet for the N64. This adventure title focused on the duo of Saber and Crystal as they tried to save the titular planet from the tyrant General Scales. But after seeing a working prototype in action, Shigeru Miyamoto noticed striking similarities between the character of Saber and Star Fox protagonist Fox McCloud. As a result, he requested that the game be reworked to include Star Fox, and production be moved to Nintendo's newest console, the GameCube. However, during development of the game, now known as Star Fox Adventures, disaster struck. At the time, Nintendo owned 49% of Rare, but chose not to purchase the remaining stock in the company. Ultimately, this meant that rival Microsoft bought Rare, and development of the game was rushed. Star Fox Adventures was released in North America on September 23, 2002, with the announcement that Microsoft had purchased Rare made public the next day. Star Fox Adventures was more in line with the Legend of Zelda adventure series than the space combat it was known for. While the game received critical praise for its visuals and character designs, it was clear that the Microsoft buyout took its toll on the game, with the second half of the game notably featuring a rushed pace and a final boss that was seemingly introduced at the very last minute. While it was loved by some, many fans of the original were disappointed that it wasn't a proper Star Fox title like its predecessors.
Look, fella, I'm not paid enough to keep getting you guys out of trouble.
Still, that same year, 2 Star Fox titles were announced to be developed by Namco, one for the GameCube and one for arcades. While the latter unfortunately never materialized, the GameCube title Star Fox Assault was released in 2005, featuring not only the space combat fans knew and loved, but also ground and tank-based combat, with players able to hop between vehicles during missions.
The hatcher is located directly below the base. Take that thing out with your R-Wing. Get to it, Fox.
However, the game earned a very mixed reception, with most of the criticism aimed at its short length, its lack of branching options similar to what was available in Star Fox 64, and its overbalance of ground-based missions with repetitive goals. Even so, the game sold enough copies to warrant a sequel. That sequel, Star Fox Command, came to Nintendo's handheld console, the Nintendo DS, in 2006. Ironically, it was developed by Q Games, a company that was made up of former Argonaut software employees. Star Fox Command was similar to the cancelled Star Fox 2 in that it was a hybrid of turn-based strategy and 360 air combat sections. While the game did receive greater critical praise than Assault, reception to Star Fox Command was mixed, with the bulk of the criticism focused on its repetitive levels. Sales were also underwhelming compared to previous titles, with only around 500,000 copies sold. So, the series was put on hold again. Although, a remaster of Star Fox 64 was released for the 3DS in 2011.
Clear, Star Fox!
You'll never defeat Andross!
It wasn't until 2016, 10 years after Star Fox Command, that the series finally received a new entry, Star Fox Zero, which was a reimagining of Star Fox 64 developed by Platinum Games for the Wii U.
What's wrong? Is that all you got?
But while the game did support all the features and elements fans loved about Star Fox 64, there was one single feature that made the game incredibly polarizing: its controls. Star Fox Zero forced players to use the Wii U gamepad screen and their TV screen at the same time, requiring them to fly in one direction and shoot in another. What's more, nearly all of the game's levels were designed around this feature, making it impossible to use a traditional control scheme. While some gamers did get accustomed to the complex controls, it proved to be borderline unplayable for others, resulting in the game being a critical and commercial failure.
Star Wars. Why am I not surprised?
Star Fox's history ain't pretty, and gamers probably know Fox McCloud better for his role in Smash Bros. Than his own series. But the Star Fox team's adventuring days are far from over, with their next quest part of Ubisoft's newest space combat title, Starlink: Battle for Atlas. So the big question is, can Ubisoft save Star Fox? Only time will tell.
So, you heading back to Corneria now?
Eventually. But let's be honest here. You guys need all the help you can get.
Thanks for watching Mojo Plays. Be sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and check out our suggestion page in the description below.